Hello, this is the Talking Puck podcast. I am Sean Coles. I'm here with my co-host Ryan Lake, and we're going to kick things off as we normally do with just a quick roundup of the last kind of week or so for the Canadian teams, and we'll start off as we normally do with my favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Not my favorite team.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I forgive you. Who are doing pretty well. You know, they're in a playoff spot right now, and they're only they're like 2 points behind Boston for second in the Atlantic with 5 games in hand.
Yeah, when they had their week off, they kind of Boston played a lot more games. So I think when they came back, they were like 5 or 6 games in hand on Boston, and
yeah,
Boston collapsed last night too. They were up, was it like 3-1 or 4-1, and they lost in overtime.
What?
Yeah, so they canceled their practice today because they let another lead go. So
canceled their practice or the day off?
They canceled their practice for today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that is surprising. But you know, the Leafs have kind of turned things on of late, and you know they got a good comeback win against the Sabres on Tuesday. You know, that was nice to see, because when I saw they were down 2-0 after one, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's probably gonna be 5-6-0, and they managed to come back and win it 4-3. But one of the things that I've been noticing for them is that their power play has been lethal.
They've been playing really, especially on the road. Their power plays is, I think it was like something stupid, like 80 or 90% or something like that on the road.
Their penalty kill was 90%
yeah,
on the road.
The penalty kill was 90% on the road. Their power play was, I think they scored like some ridiculous amount of goals just on the road alone on the power play. So if they can keep, you know, those leads in the third period, come second half after the All-Star break, where for some reason they're a few days off, some teams don't play well after, but who knows? We'll see how they're gonna.
They had 5 days off and have come storming out of the gates.
Yeah,
so
and
the rest must have done them some good.
It must have been that girlfriend's trip that they took to the Caribbean.
That was funny. That was pretty funny. It's like Marner's going boys trip, and Austin Matthews just blowing him out of the water there. But what is concerning now for them is that Riley's injured.
Yeah,
he's out day to day. Doesn't look too serious, but they got to play the Rangers tonight.
And Mr. Frankie Corrado is getting his...
Frankie Corrado. They freed Frankie. He's getting in. It's exciting to see.
In an interview with Morgan Riley about the injury, he said the way it felt was basically how it looked. Those are the words he used. He said how it looked is exactly how it felt.
But anyways, we'll move it along to the Montreal Canadiens. And... you know, they've been rather up and down lately, but the biggest thing, and I think we touched on it last week as well, is that Price hasn't looked like Price.
He's in he's in a slump. I don't know if it's because he hasn't played a full season in over a year, or you know, every goalie does go through a slump, but you know, he's not himself. I think his goals against average was like some mid to high 2s.
Well, and he left another 4 in last night against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and they were, I mean, mind you, one of them was kind of a weak goal. The other ones were kind of deflections and tips that he didn't really have much control over.
But Price, when he's on his game, makes those saves.
Right, but at the same time, the team in front of him wasn't really giving him much opportunity, considering, 1, they only scored 1 goal, and 2, they kind of were not getting out of their zone.
Well, it's kind of hard to get out of your zone when you're playing against a team like Pittsburgh, who's so quick on the forecheck.
With all those injuries as well.
Yeah.
So it was just...
Well, and Petrie hasn't looked good either.
No, he hasn't. He's been failing them for the last few weeks now, but...
He's had a great season up until now, though. I wonder if he's just hitting a wall, or if he's starting to play more to what his skills actually are.
You know, if it wasn't for their hot start, you know, they're lucky that they did start like 13-1-1 or whatever it was, because they haven't obviously played great the last little bit, but they are slowly starting to get some of their guys back. So I'm wondering, you know, maybe if that's
Andrew Shaw's back.
Yeah, Shaw's back. Galchenyuk was back. He scored the other night. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, because, you know, everyone out there is, they always collapse. They've only missed the playoffs back-to-back seasons, I think, once in the last, 20 years.
But they're very up and down. Because
yeah.
when they miss, they're not missing, by a small margin. They're, bottom of the league.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, I think still, regardless, they're a strong enough team that they're going to make the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're not, at this point, they're not really a threat coming out of the Eastern Conference. There's too many stronger teams like Pittsburgh or at this moment Columbus too, that would probably steamroll them.
See, Columbus is an interesting one because they're riding hot goaltending because Bob is on his game this year, but I don't think they're as good as what they like. You win 16 or whatever they won in a row. That's going to make your record look a lot better than it actually is.
Oh, for sure. They won 16 in a row, and I think at the time, Montreal was still only like 3 or 4 points behind them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm wondering for Montreal if maybe a solution for them, if it's the fact that, maybe Price is a little tired. He's out basically for a whole season.
And then you just thrust him right back in.
Well, he's playing World Cup of hockey before, so he's already got like an extra month's worth of hockey on him at this point. You're halfway through the season. You play him a lot because he's the best goalie in the world right now. Maybe you give him a week off.
That's what I was reading, is that let Montoya start the next 2 games.
Yeah.
And that way he kind of has 6 or 7 days off rest. You can hang out, go enjoy the All-Star game, whatever.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Come back kind of focused and rejuvenated for the second half of the season. Because really, nothing really matters until the second half of the season as to where you are in the standings.
Well, it does matter.
It does, but when you're already in a comfortable position, this is where it really starts to matter, is to make sure you stay in that position for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And someone or a team that is looking to stay in the playoff picture, the Ottawa Senators. Again, not doing too badly. They've beaten some good teams in the last week. They beat the Pens last week 4-1, and they beat the Blues on, I think it was Sunday or Monday, 6-4, but lost to the Leafs 4-2 and looked okay. But I don't know. They're one of those teams that's kind of up and down.
Yeah, I mean, their record at the time was 23-15-4. That's not a bad record considering the issues that they've had with, goaltending, a new system in place where, you don't let Karlsson be Karlsson as much. Really, I'm surprised they are where they are. If they can get Anderson back, which from what his wife posted was that she has Mark Mathot days left of therapy down in wherever they are, Pittsburgh or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she's returning to Canada, I think, in 3 or 4 days.
What number is Mark Mathot?
Number 3.
Oh, okay.
So if she's got 3 days left, now people are confused thinking, oh, she only has 3 days left to live? But I think everyone read the tweet as how many days left of chemo or whatever radiation that she's going through. So if that's the case, and then they come back to Canada, hopefully they can get Anderson for the second half of the season.
My thing about Anderson, though, is that he's 35. He's not young. Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of hockey on him, which I guess means he could probably, if he keeps himself in shape, play a little later into his 30s. But this is usually when a goalie starts to decline a bit.
Yeah, but maybe for him not really playing the first half of the season, maybe the second half will be fresh for him, that he can finish the season strong.
Yeah, but he's got to come in fully focused and with no rust, and with being out for however many months he's been out now, at least probably, 2-3 months?
Yeah, something like that. But
he's been out.
He was out for a few weeks. When he came back for the one night, he ended up getting like a shutout his first start back. So
that's true. That is true. But I'm wondering if after this length of time he's probably not working out as much.
Yeah, probably not.
And he's goalies will probably go, I would assume, will go and take a ton of shots, every day at practice and whatnot, just to stay focused and kick off any
reaction
rust.
time.
Yeah, exactly. And just hone all their skills. I can't see him having done much of that for the last few months.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's going on with his family.
It's going to be one of those things, like we don't obviously know too much about it. He's been pretty tight-lipped about everything. So
which is fair.
As far as we know, he could be training every day. His wife's getting radiation, whatever. He could be doing a bunch of things. But until he either comes back or doesn't come back, or comes back and plays well, I guess we'll just have to keep an eye on that and see. But regardless of what happens, good news about her. So
yeah, exactly. But with some not so good news, we're going to move it along to the Winnipeg Jets, who are kind of like the bad news Jets at this point, because their goaltending has been so catastrophic that they had to call up Pavlik.
And he let in his first goal on the very first shot he faced this year. Mind you, he did get the win.
He did, and made some good saves, but that was their first win in what looks like
4 or 5 games. Yeah, it wasn't. Winnipeg is this week's version of what we like to call the Vancouver Canucks. They're
Yes.
the dumpster fire this week.
Except the fact that the Winnipeg Jets actually have some talent
Yes.
and young talent.
They do, but they run into issues with their goaltending, and when your goalie can't stop a beach ball, with your top scorer out with a concussion, that also sucks for them too, right? Although he did skate, no timetable when he's coming back, but Laine skated yesterday for the first time.
That is good. That is good to hear, because that'll be... they've taken a bit of a nosedive since he hasn't been playing.
Yep.
But what's interesting, because I was... I follow the Steve Dangle podcast, as you know, and something that Steve Dangle was looking at was, is Paul Maurice a bad coach, or does he just have bad goalies? And they actually looked up the average of the save percentage for his goalies. He's had a lot of bad goalies, by the way. You just look at the two that he had in Toronto, which was Raycroft and Toskala. Those were bad goalies.
Oh, I know.
But
Raycroft ended up coming to Colorado.
It's like a 905 average save percentage for all the goalies he's had since like the mid to late 90s.
But then is that really bad goalies, or...
You look at the list of goalies and you go, okay, no, these are bad goalies.
I also think it's also possibly his style, where they just face so many shots that the goalies turn out to be pretty bad.
That is true. That is true. But here's what I'm wondering.
No, Raycroft did suck.
Raycroft did suck, and it's still a little bitter.
And Toskala was really good at letting in center ice shots all the time.
Oh, fuck, man. Those were brutal. That was like, Bernier was almost as bad as Toskala.
I think Toskala still was worse.
Someone needs to do like a top 10 of bad Leafs goalies from the last decade. There's going to be a few of them.
You'd have a few, yeah, you'd have a nice selection.
There's like 15 or 20, I'm sure, to choose from. But one thing that I'm wondering, because we've discussed previously whether or not it's time for a new coach to come in. But here's my thought now. I did a little more thinking about this, because it seems like the biggest thing that's wrong with the Jets is that they don't have good goaltending. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Their GM does not like to make trades.
Nope, that's not at all.
Cheveldayoff sits and waits and plays the long game, which is admirable. I get that.
If you have a better roster.
Well, no, that's the thing. They do have a good roster.
Goalie-wise, I should say.
Yeah, like, the rest of the roster is good. But eventually, like, you can't just draft your entire team. That's not how it works.
Unless you're Chicago, but
even then, they acquire pieces through trade.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
you look at Panik. They basically got him for nothing, and he plays on, I think, their second line.
He's been playing well for him.
Exactly. Again, a little bitter about that. But at some point, he's got to pull the trigger on a trade for a goalie, and
sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
There's none left.
Exactly. And you know what? You know who's probably a good one to try and get right now?
Semyon Varlamov. Let's go. Get rid of him.
If he wants his team to be worse, then yes. But to get an actually good goalie at what could be considered a low cost right now, take a look at Ben Bishop.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been having a good season to this point.
Plus, they really like Vasilevsky down in Tampa.
They do. The only problem with that is that Vasilevsky hasn't played all that well this year. But my thinking is Bishop's got half a year left on his contract. At this point, he's going to move somewhere. Whether he gets taken in the draft to Las Vegas.
So you might as well get something for him while you can, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing: because he hasn't been playing that well, his trade value is going to be lower than it would have been this time last year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Take advantage of it while you can. Now, who knows? Cheveldayoff may be, burning phone lines to try and make a trade.
What do you think of them trying to get Fleury?
See, and I did think about that. That's a good idea as well. The problem is, though, that you're going to have to give up more to get Fleury.
You would.
Than you would to get Bishop. Now, the thing with getting Fleury is that you get someone who's still got some contract left.
So you would get possibly more than just the rest of this year out of him. And he is a more consistent goalie than Hellebuck or Pavlik or any of them down there.
But with either one of those two options, you get someone in there who can not only mentor the younger goalie, because at this point, I think it's Hellebuck.
Hellebuck's like the future.
Yeah, him or Eric Comrie.
Yeah.
That's coming up. Those two are probably the future tandem between the pipes there. But with either one of those goalies, you get someone in there that can, mentor them a bit, right? And hold the fort for you as well.
And they do have playoff experience.
Yeah,
both those goalies have been either to at least the conference finals with.
Well, Bishop's been to the finals.
Yeah,
he just hasn't won.
Yeah, Bishop hasn't won. So you have Stanley Cup final winning goalie and a losing goalie, but have both been there. Who can
each have been there and done that.
Share the experiences and get some sort of knowledge to the younger guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that he can pull something off, because really I think that's the missing piece for the Jets at this point is their goaltending.
I feel like that's been, for the last few years, has really been their
absolutely
their issue.
But here's another thing, though. At what point does Cheveldayoff start to take some of the blame here?
Right.
Because obviously it's Paul Maurice who's losing his mind right now, but he's always been an expressive guy. But if you're not being provided the tools to win, at what point is that your fault?
Right. You can only do so much with the tools that you have without having to upgrade to do better.
If Pavelec still looks like your best choice, there's an issue.
Yeah.
That is the equivalent of having Semyon Varlamov.
And if he is your best choice, and you know he's your best choice, why did you have him in the minors for the entire season?
Because he's not your best choice. But what you thought was your best choice has obviously not been. But moving along to a team that has had a bit more luck of late with their goaltending, the Calgary Flames. They've turned things around. We noted that last week, and they're coming off what was a good win against the Panthers this week. Tough shootout loss to the Oilers on Saturday as well. But they finally got their goaltending figured out, and I think that's really helped them.
They have been sharing the load a lot more because both goalies have been playing well, like Johnson and Elliott. Now, I did read something on Sportsnet that because of how bad Jake Allen's been playing in St. Louis, that St. Louis may actually try and trade to get Brian Elliott back.
Oh, my God.
Not necessarily trading Allen for Elliott, but trading for something and then making Johnson the starter in Calgary. Whether or not Calgary would bite on that, I don't think so, but that's what the talks have been.
But at what, there's probably not much point in trying to pick up Elliott at this point. Just wait till the end of the season and sign him as a free agent.
Right.
Yeah, they probably want to make the push this year, and, Jake Allen may or may not be able to do that. But the Western Conference is weak this year. If there's any time to get in and make a playoff push, it's this year.
Oh, for sure. And Jake Allen's been pulled in 3 of his last 7 starts or something like that.
That's bad.
He has not been playing well, and the pulls were 4 or 5 goals on bad shots.
You know who's going to be their savior? Marty Brodeur.
Well, he played in their heritage game or whatever.
Oh, come on,
and
the alumni game.
And he played a total of 4 games with them. I think they were just hurting for goalies.
Well, Gretzky did that too.
Yeah.
After a period, he came in. He's like, "I want a hot dog." But Jake Allen is he's somewhat young. It's his first time kind of taking on the major.
Well, yeah, because they split the load
the
last year. One would get hot, they'd play 4 or 5 games, then they would change goalies for 3 or 4 games.
Well, because that goalie would go cold. So what made them think that he'd be steady enough to get through the season? Who knows? But all you really need is league average goaltending. So it's about .914 save percentage, thereabouts. That's all you really need to at least get into the playoffs.
Especially in the West, where the West isn't as strong this year.
Which is surprising. That's shocking to me.
The West is usually always the powerhouse.
Well, exactly. And actually, just speaking of the West a little more, just before we get back to talk about Calgary here, have you heard anything about Jonathan Quick lately?
I've not heard it. They've been pretty tight-lipped, which makes me think that he's still farther off than what...
Yeah.
Because at first they said he was going to be ready for January-ish. Now they're saying February, March, but you'd think that if he was...
Playoffs.
You'd think that if he was getting closer to return, that the team would be more buzzed or amped about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
You know who I saw might be out for the rest of the year, and this is going to be awful for Florida, is Jonathan Huberdeau.
I didn't see that.
I saw I don't know if it was a tweet or if it was any a notification from the NHL app today, but it was saying that Tom Rowe said that he could be out for the rest of the season. He's been out for the whole season as it is.
Yeah.
So what the hell happened to him?
I don't know.
But that's awful news for them. But good news for me, because that's one less team the Leafs have to compete with. But anyways, getting back to Calgary, it's an ideal time for them to get into the playoffs because everyone has been doing poorly. Maybe mix things up a bit. Get into the second, third round.
As long as they don't mean Anaheim.
True. But the more times they go through something like that, the better it is. And from what I read, I didn't watch the game on Saturday, but the game against the Oilers was a good game. Like, not high scoring, but a really good game. Imagine if we have a Battle of Alberta matchup in the first or second round of the playoffs.
I didn't see the game either, but I was reading that like it was kind of rivalry renewed, kind of good, hard-hitting game, fun to watch. They won 5-2 too as well, right? Or sorry, no, against the Oilers. They lost in the shootout. Sorry, so
it was low scoring.
It was a low scoring game, but it was one of those like old school defensive kind of games.
Playoff game.
It was a playoff game, and apparently it renewed that that Battle of Alberta,
which is good because those kinds of rivalries are boring as hell when either one team is good and the other one's bad, or just both teams are bad.
Yeah, because even when you're both bad, there's usually still a blowout.
Yeah, exactly. Like I look at Ottawa and the Leafs. That rivalry has just been done for the last almost decade.
Yeah,
because the teams have been bad. But I grew up when it was, early 2000s. Biggest rivalry there was for the Leafs. It was bigger than against the Habs.
Now the Habs and the Leafs is starting to become a better rivalry again. It's just the Leafs need to beat the Habs.
Oh my God! Oh, that's a sore point for me. That is. But anyways, the Battle of Alberta is getting better, and I think the Canadian teams getting better is going to be better for the sport as a whole.
It's going to be better, better for hockey.
Yeah, exactly, and with Edmonton. They won their game. I think it was it was last night, but they didn't play well. But they're still grinding out those wins, which they didn't used to do.
They could never do that. Like even the year that they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, that was the last time I think where they really got those gritty wins. Ever since then, those games where the puck isn't bouncing their way, but they still find a way to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing this year, which they haven't done in 10 years.
Well, and they did that with what was it, Rolly the goalie, when he was like 40 years old.
He was Dwayne Rollison.
Oh man.
Reminds me of back in the day when you had guys like Marty Turco and Ron Tugnutt.
Oh man, they used to have some awesome goalies, and I miss it. Like you look at like Rolly the goalie, the Boulin Wall.
Yeah,
you don't get these awesome nicknames anymore.
My favorite thing ever about Nikolai Havy-Bulin was in the playoffs. Between every period, he had security take him outside so we could have a cigarette between every period.
You don't say that nowadays.
Not at all, because it's all about your health and your body now. But he needed that cigarette between every period.
Can you imagine Freddie Anderson trying to do that? Lou would come down and beat the shit out of him.
Imagine Carey Price. Oh, hey guys, just out here having my cigarette before I go back in and stop 40 shots.
You know what? He's so cool. He probably smokes a bit of weed between periods. Say, hey man, it's cool.
He does seem like a really laid back guy.
He is. But anyways, getting back to Edmonton, they are doing very well, much better than I thought they would be. I think they've won their last four or so in a row. They're grinding out some tight wins, but I'm still not completely sold on them, and I think part of that for me is that their goaltending, while steady, I think could be better.
Yeah, and they don't really have much of a backup.
No, they don't. That's true. Who is their backup? I don't think anyone even knows.
Every time I look at the game, it's always Talbot. So
didn't they have Gustafsson?
They did.
They waived him.
They waived him, and now I'm not sure who they have. That would actually be interesting to know, because if something were to happen to Talbot,
yeah, at that point they're stuck. I would say if Talbot gets injured, their playoffs are done.
Yep. And but on the other side of it, McDavid was the first player this year to hit 50 points.
Yeah, he probably will end up winning the Hart Trophy, but the Art Ross is the most points. I think the Hart will still go to Sid. Personally.
Yes, I believe that, and he also reached point number 100 as well.
He did. He's doing very well, but again, Sid's a little higher up on that.
Oh
list.
Yeah, the torch isn't passed yet, but
that makes me happy, because everyone is so quick to anoint him as best player in the game. It's like, no. They're these guys that, yeah, they've been around a little longer, but they've been there and done that.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, too.
And they still got some left in the tank, too.
Crosby is also at 50 points this year, and Crosby played like 6 or 7 games less because he missed a lot at the beginning of the year, right?
I think he was just giving everyone a head start, going, no, it's okay. You guys go on ahead. I'll catch up.
And that he did.
Exactly. But I don't know. I'm still, as I've said, I'm still not completely sold on Edmonton. And I hope they do well. I hope they get into the playoffs. I don't see them progressing past the second round if they get there.
It's tough to say because, like we said, the West is weak this year.
Yeah.
So
that's true. But, you run up against a team like Anaheim, or if you run up against a team like LA. Honestly, LA, I think, would grind them down.
That's LA style, right? They run 4 lines of just gritty guys who just punish you for 3 periods, right? So I don't know. It's tough to say. Like Edmonton, to me, they're not in a familiar spot for us to be like, oh, they're going to do this because this is not a spot we're used to them being in.
And what's shocking as well is that Edmonton will probably be a buyer at the trade deadline
for the first time in years.
Yeah, exactly. How long has it been since that happened? So we'll see if they make some moves there. Maybe they move for a new goalie.
Well, Semyon Varlamov can come and be the backup.
I think Calgary would hope for that. But anyways, to move it along to our 7th and final Canadian team here, we're going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Again, not too much great to say about them. They're there. They're
there. They're not the dumpster fire that they were a couple weeks ago.
They're also not below 500, which the Winnipeg Jets can't say.
That's true. And in news about them, the third Subban brother got called up by them.
I did see that. Yeah, Jordan
Subban. There's Jordan, Malcolm, PK, and then there's 2 other ones as well. Like there's
5
kids. I don't know if the other 2 are female or what, but there's 5 Subbans.
Oh, man.
Subban is terrible goalie. Malcolm, 2 career starts. He's been pulled both games.
I think he's got like a 7-something save percentage. It's bad.
And also, I don't know. I can't remember if it's Daniel or Henrik, but he's at .999. So his next
it's Henrik.
I think it is Henrik. And
he
asked him
to get more points.
They asked him. They said, "Will you have any family in the stands tonight to watch your game?" And he said, "Well, Daniel will be there." So that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, they've got good humor, and they've been there a long time. They've done great things for the city, but again, Vancouver to me is just not trending in the right direction. I know it's like beating a dead horse at this point. We've talked it over and over. Sedins have got to go somewhere.
There's a reason why I've never liked Vancouver, and that's because the old style of conferences, the way they were set up, they were in Colorado's division. And it was always like Colorado, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Vancouver. The Sedins would always come into Colorado, and I'd turn the TV on and be like 3-0 Vancouver, and I'd turn the game off. So I've never liked Vancouver myself, but I like Bo Horvat. Ryan Miller. Yep. I like Ryan Miller.
Oh, I hate Ryan Miller. Hate him.
I like him when he's on Vancouver, not when he's on Team US, or I didn't really like him when he was on Buffalo either.
He was good in Buffalo.
Oh, he was very good.
Problem.
Yeah.
Always managed to pull out the biggest performance of the year against the Leafs. Always pissed me off.
Seems like a lot of goalies seem to have the performance of the year against the Leafs.
They do. It's ridiculous. But I don't know with the Vancouver Canucks. That's the problem. There's so many things they probably could do, and they're picking up points, which is good, but it's gonna start making I just know it's gonna start making their management feel like they're in a better position than they are, and they're not.
Even if they were to be 500 at the deadline, with the way that they run things in Vancouver, they'll probably still be buyers.
Oh, probably. They'll end up trading away their first round pick, and then they'll come in last place and win the lottery, and they'll end up being like Chicago that picks it up.
I guarantee you something like that will happen.
Oh, you just know something ridiculous is going to happen, and they're not as much of a dumpster fire as they've been in the past of this season.
It's got to be tough to be a Vancouver fan. I
think it's always tough to be a Vancouver fan.
Like even around here in London, I don't know anybody that's a Vancouver fan really.
No, well, I think they're a little more localized out west.
Right, but I mean, you can go anywhere in Canada and find a Montreal or a Toronto fan.
That's true.
But you don't see anyone that's like, oh, I'm a Canucks fan.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I like some of the players that they've had in past years. I enjoyed watching them when they had Naslund and Brendan Morrison, Bertuzzi before he assaulted a guy.
Dan Cloutier was fun to watch.
Oh, Dan Cloutier was awful.
But he was fun to watch with that cage.
Entertaining.
He was like an Osgood with the cage, but just not with the skill.
Even Osgood wasn't that good.
But he was on good teams.
Look, when you're on the team that Detroit had, where your fourth line is essentially a second line on any other team, yeah, it's got to be pretty damn easy to play behind them. But again, like I've said to you before, I think one of my all-time favorite players, if not my all-time favorite player, was Pavel
Bure. Hey, he was fun to watch. He was, like I was saying to you on the weekend, is in a game like it was in the 90s, he was playing more of a style like it was today's game.
Oh, he honestly, I think he'd be almost Connor McDavid these days with his speed.
Oh, for sure. He was nobody.
The hands and everything. Unreal.
He was ridiculous the way he set up his teammates and the way he just blew by everyone. Right?
Yeah.
So he was really fun to watch. And I'm not a Vancouver fan, like I said, but Pavel Bure is one of those guys you can't deny how good he was. Right?
Well, and then you got guys there like Trevor Linden. As well, who was a good player, but maybe not as good a president. And who was I hearing? I think it was on Hockey Central at noon yesterday. They were talking to a guy out of I think about the New York Islanders. They were talking to one of the beat reporters there, and he was saying, it's becoming a trend where a lot of former players are getting management positions within their old teams
just because of what they did for the team.
Exactly. They've had success there as a player, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have success in the front office.
For sure.
But they're giving these former players so much license because they're hockey guys. And yeah, there's being a hockey guy and then there's being in the front office, right? I think totally different things.
Completely, but I think what they're thinking is that they're going to sell tickets because this person is the GM or this person is the president or...
That's true. And you do get some situations where it works out. Like I think Joe Nieuwendyk did pretty well down in Dallas for what he did there. I think before I think Jim Nill stepped in there.
Now
after him.
The jury will be out. It depends on how Joe Sakic does this rebuild. If he does it properly, then I can see him being it. But right now, he's one of those ones where he shouldn't have been a GM. But again, if he does the rebuild properly, then my mind can be changed, right?
Yeah, exactly. But this is the thing, is that there are options out there. Like I think it's Dan Fuda, who's in LA, who probably would be a better GM than Joe Sakic. Like I have no doubt that Joe Sakic has talents that he can use, but I feel like he'd be better served as a president.
Oh, for sure.
At that point, I agree. As opposed to a GM.
Now, again, depending on how the rebuild goes, I can change my mind. But right now, I feel like he should have been president or vice president of hockey operations. And
isn't he president?
He's one of the, but he more carries the GM role than he does anything else, right? But I wish he was strictly just one of those and not so much the GM.
Or you know what? Even get Dale Talon out of Florida, because they say, oh, Dale Talon's calling more shots now. It's like, what? Who knows what the hell's going on down in Florida? Because I saw a report today that the Vinny Viola, who is now going to be like the civilian leader of the armed force or the army down there, just like screamed at one of the convenience people there, or the concession people.
I did hear that.
Like, yes, works in the army. Maybe not so much when you've got some 17-year-old with acne
working behind.
Who's working for like minimum wage, which down there is I think $5 or $6 an hour.
But there's no tax.
Selling $6 hot dogs. Like, there's a time and a place. But this is what I'm saying though, is that there's this pattern now that I'm wondering if it isn't as well served that as some teams think it is. Like you look at some. Brendan Shanahan has done very well with building, but he's gotten the people that are good for it.
And it's not just him. He's got a supporting cast that is just as good with him.
I'd say he's got one of the best in the league between Hunter and you got Brandon Pridham, who's jumping through hoops to keep them under the cap. You got one of the most experienced GMs in Lou Lamoriello. He managed to get Mike Babcock to come there when he basically He was just about to sign on the dotted line with Buffalo. And then you've got and then you got Kyle Dubas there as well, who will probably end up being one of the best, one of the youngest GMs ever, because he will most likely take over from Lou once Lou's done. But this is just what I'm saying is that there's this idea that to go back to former players is the right move, and I just don't know that it is.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe some office role, but like you said, maybe GM's not the best for. I mean, unless some of them went to school or something, like, you know, there's a lot of guys that go to school for different stuff that applies to that kind of like business school, whatnot. But I mean, if you're just a former player that, you're a fan favorite, that doesn't necessarily qualify you to be a general manager and make possible trades.
Well, exactly. Like, I see assistant GM.
Yeah.
Maybe learn the
ropes for a few years.
Yeah, exactly. It's, to me, GM has always seemed like a learned position where where you need to have an apprenticeship for it. And just stepping in there because you're one of the best players that the team ever had
is not necessarily a qualification.
No, it's not. Yeah, it does mean that you know the organization a bit, but it doesn't mean that you're qualified to make trades.
Oh, for sure.
And especially when he probably never thought this was going to happen, but they're going through a rebuild at this point. How equipped is he to pull off that rebuild?
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to hope that he does the right things.
Exactly. And hopefully Jim Benning, bring it all the way back around to Vancouver, will not fuck up Vancouver any more than it already is. I'm not betting money on that. But anyways, to move it on from the Canadian teams, I want to talk about something here that's kind of been bothering me a little bit, and it's about coaching in the league. And one thing that I think kind of hit home to me when we were watching the World Cup of Hockey was the young guns. The amount of just singular talent that was on that team and speed made them probably the most entertaining team I've ever seen.
Watching guys like McDavid, Matthews, and McKinnon fly down the ice together, I think I had a half chub the entire game.
And I don't blame you. But this is the thing, is that I don't know that Todd McClellan really coached them that much. I think aside from a few things, I think he just said, go out and play your game.
Other than, the face-off, certain design plays, I think you're right. I think mostly he said, no one expects us to be here. Just go out and do your thing. And
yeah, exactly.
And that overtime against Sweden was like...
Oh, my God. That was...
McKinnon's goal in overtime was one of the nicest backhand, forehand goals I've ever seen.
That was by far one of the best games of hockey I've ever seen in my life. But not that I've been on this earth that long. I'm only 26. But this is what I'm thinking, is that you watch games now and there's no creativity, really. And that's why seeing players like Matthews and Marner, Kane, these guys, and Johnny Gaudreau, they're so creative, but it sets them apart. Yes, they are amazing players, and yes, their level of skill should set them apart, but they shouldn't be the only creative players.
They shouldn't be, but it makes me wonder if it's so much just the coach that they have, or if it's the entire way that they've been brought up through, three of the four guys you just announced, like I said, they're Kane, Gaudreau, Matthews, are all American. So, it could be product of their junior coaches, of their international coaches. Maybe they let them be, more creative. Whereas you look at Canadian coaches and they're strict about...
Well, and I'm wondering if it's just coaching in general, though.
I think it is, to be honest.
Where it's all systems based.
When you have a guy like McDavid, who obviously you try and build a system around, but they have a system in place that, who knows, maybe McDavid would already have 70 or 80 points this season if they had a different style in place, or let him do what he wanted or whatever more than a defensive style. Or
I totally agree with that. I think that giving players license to be creative, yes, you open yourself up more to having goals scored against you if that creativity goes wrong, which I'm gonna
PK
assume.
Subban.
Well, exactly. Exactly. Jake Gardner on the Leafs, very creative, but yeah, he gives up the puck every now and again.
Tyson Barrie.
Yeah, exactly. These creative players that aren't given the license to be as creative as they are. You know what? Grade A example would be Morgan Riley, because you see him when he plays for North America for the Young Guns team. Unbelievable. He's
flying coast to coast.
Exactly. He was given the license to unlock his full offensive potential, which Mike Babcock doesn't let him do.
Nope.
And hey, I get what Mike's doing, because he's trying to get him to be that number one defenseman. And you know what? Same thing with Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
He's won a Norris because he had over 80 points in the season, but he couldn't play defense to save his life.
But
he's actually learning how to play that this year, because that coach is drilling into them defensive structure. But at the same time, is that defensive structure at least partly responsible? Well, not at least 50% responsible for why there's not as much scoring in the game as there was. There's no room for mistake anymore, and those mistakes lead to goals.
And maybe that's why too, is because the game has gotten so good that if you do fuck up now, the puck's in the back of your net. In the back of your net. You look at games before, the puck would get turned over 4 or 5 times. Now you look at games where guy loses the puck, 2 seconds later you're down 1-0.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a mixture of the over coaching to play a certain style, but also to try and keep the win or the lead or.
But here's the thing though: if both teams are making mistakes, because both teams are playing, more creative hockey, then each team has the opportunity to take advantage
for sure.
of any mistakes, right? And I think that, because I think more towards the 80s at this point, when, it was really high-scoring hockey, that there were lots of mistakes going on, but guys were also playing, 2-minute shifts.
And
had, Brett Hull, after 3 minutes, couldn't skate back to his own end.
And goalies didn't really do anything. They didn't go into butterfly.
Yeah.
They didn't really...
Here, let me try and kick the puck while standing up. But here's my thought, though, is that the coaches are kept on such a short leash.
Very much so.
And they are the first ones to get fired. And if there were more license given to the coaches, that, even if they lose a few games in a row or the team's not playing well, at least the game is still entertaining.
It reminds me of, I can't remember what his name was, but was it the year before Babcock came in for Toronto when they fired their coach?
Oh, they had Peter Horacek.
And they had, they didn't score a goal for 4 games because he was trying to focus on defense first. That they had absolutely zero offense for 4 games.
It was bad. That was a bad season and a half.
That was overcoaching on the defensive end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason that he was fired. I did feel a little badly for him because it was a no-win situation for him.
Yeah, you weren't going to do much regardless of who you were, really.
No, that team was just headed in the wrong direction, and Peter Horacek just kind of amplified that. I don't know that he's really worked in hockey.
I haven't heard the name around in a long time.
Even as an assistant coach.
Unless he's somewhere behind the scenes, but...
Well, that's what I've found kind of funny is that not many people pay attention just because it's out west, but Paul McLean is an assistant coach in Anaheim.
Even though he's you don't hear a lot of him.
He won the Jack Adams.
Yeah.
2 years later, he's an assistant coach.
The one thing that gets me is you don't really hear. You still do, but you don't really hear Brian Burke's name anymore. No, not as much as you used to.
He's a goalie coach, I thought, somewhere.
Like Calgary or one of those. Yeah, he's. But you used to hear his name. You couldn't go 2 days without hearing some weird story that came out of his mouth or something.
He's got like the Canadian version of Brizgalov.
I don't think anyone will ever be like Brizgalov. Even though the universe is so humongous big.
It's so humongous big. But yeah, it's just we've talked before about the game needing to be more entertaining, and goals make it entertaining, and mistakes make it more entertaining too, right? It gets you more on the edge of your seat.
Speaking of goals, that Pittsburgh win over Washington where they won 8-7.
Oh, man.
That game alone brought the league's goals for from like 2.47 to like 2.89.
I think, what was it? Matt Murray was the first goalie since like the early 90s to let in 7 goals and still win.
It's funny because...
well, the next night was like 7-6 or something. Yeah, another game.
But that night, Malkin got a hat trick.
Yeah.
And the last time that Washington scored 7 goals and lost was in the 90s against Pittsburgh, and Mario Lemieux had a hat trick.
Yeah.
So it's kind of history repeating itself there. Man.
Was those back in the days with Ole the goalie? As well,
probably. I'd imagine.
Oh man, he was a good goalie.
I loved Olaf Kolzig. When I played road hockey, I used to always pretend that I was him, just flopping around everywhere. But regardless, the scoring has been down. But in the last 2 weeks, I literally see every post on Facebook from different groups. It's touchdown Pittsburgh, touchdown this team, 6 goals. Oh, the extra point's good, 7-0. Like it has been
touchdown.
That's what they're always. If you watch NHL news and updates, whenever a team hits 6 points, they say touchdown Pittsburgh. Whenever they get 6 goals, and then when they get the 7th goal, they say and the extra point is good.
That's funny.
So when Montreal lost 10-0, it was like, oh yeah, they got it was like touchdown, extra points good, and the field goal. It's a term that has been used a lot more in the last 2 weeks because there has been 6-0, 7-6, 8-7.
The Habs losing 7-1.
Yeah, and then 8-7, then 7-6, and then the Colorado game the other night was like 6-4. So there's the scoring has been up recently, but overall it's still not as much as it used to be.
And we saw that at the beginning of the season as well, right? There was lots of scoring then, but it's still hard to score. And I know they're trying to come up with ways to do that, but I feel like the amount of limitations that coaches are putting on players these days to play a specific system is limiting.
They're all just playing the neutral zone.
Well, exactly. They play a way that isn't as entertaining as it could be. And like you don't get the opportunity. You see Crosby go through a few guys like with some nice dekes before getting a shot on goal, whatever. And everyone in the arena goes, "Oh, that's so
But
amazing."
He could do that every time if he was allowed.
Well, exactly. Like back in 80s, 90s, like guys would be doing that all the time.
Look at Bobby Orr. Like look at the stuff he did.
Exactly.
And he was a defenseman.
I remember. I think it was maybe Alex Mogilny would go like end to end for the Leafs. Like it was more. You would see it more then, and it's gotten taken out of the game. And the game is still entertaining, but I think there's still room for it to grow.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
But I don't know how you solve the problem of overcoaching. There's no easy way to solve that.
There's not, and it comes down probably to the owners or the vice president or whoever is putting those tight leashes on the coaches, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Like unless the league hands something down where minimum you have to give a coach 2 years or something like that, but that'll never happen.
Yeah, it's just going to be one of those unfortunate byproducts.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay, I think to kind of finish things off, we should just give a quick thought to Hayley Wickenheiser.
Long, awesome career.
She's been around as long as I can remember.
What is it, like 20 years or 22 years or something like that?
Earlier mid-90s. When she started. So, yeah, she's been going a while.
She's won multiple gold medals for Canada. She's,
won basically everything you can for international hockey. She played men's hockey.
Yeah, in Finland. She played in like one of their top leagues, and she's, good for her and whatever she decides to do next.
She's going to med school.
Is that what she's doing?
Yeah, I think from what I read, it's for, I don't know if it's chiropractor or what, but she's doing something.
That's pretty awesome.
At med school. That's why she's quitting, is that she's gotten accepted. And
now they were talking about what they should do with her number, whether it should be retired. I'd say for sure, at least for women's hockey, it should be retired.
Yes, for women's hockey, it should
International women's hockey, it should be retired as well.
Yeah.
Now,
NHL, I don't think.
No. She never played NHL, so that shouldn't count, right? I mean, that'd be like us retiring Crosby's number in women's league because he's so good. Like, it doesn't really make sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's still playing, so imagine. Right. It's like, no, Sydney, you cannot have your number anymore.
So, I mean, she definitely deserves maybe like some sort of hockey ambassador of Canada or some sort of.
You know what? She'll have a role with Hockey Canada once she's done school.
Once she gets the chance to.
Yeah.
And yeah, good for her. I mean, thank you for,
Absolutely. And
especially when the U.S. women had our flag on the
that's
floor.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Actually, it's good. I want to know now if they want us to come and sign it.
Yeah. And then they got in trouble because afterwards they went and laid at center ice and they were smoking cigars and drinking wine and they got in trouble. So
whatever.
Who cares? But the women can never seem to win the Four Nations Cup. It always seems to be the U.S. But when it really matters in the Olympics, the Canadian women seem to
turn it on.
Turn it on.
Well, look at Sochi, right?
Yep.
They were about to lose
with like 3 minutes left, and they tied it up, and then they got a power play in overtime. And I still remember watching Tim and Sid, and when they scored,
Sid must have just been going nuts.
He ran around. He ran in circles for like 5 minutes, just screaming.
He is a funny guy. He is a funny guy.
I didn't like him on the score. I like them both now that they're on Sportsnet.
Yeah.
Now, although, one thing I did want to mention besides Hayley Wickenheiser is the NHL has reached an agreement with some video partner in China, and they're going to start bringing a lot of NHL content now to China.
That's not shocking. I know that because that's one of the biggest markets in the world to try and hone in on.
Well, and especially with all their sensors and everything, it's really hard to get into that market. But NHL agreed. I don't know the name of the company. It was some sort of media conglomerate, but
that's
they reached some sort of probably $1 or billion-dollar deal to bring, one step into making more money and possibly bringing it, the game there, which maybe will help them bring the guys over to South Korea.
Yeah, but again, South Korea, I know we've talked about this. It's a little bit different. I definitely see them going to Beijing in another, 5 years or whatever it is.
5 or 6 years.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I hope they go and that the owners get their sticks out of their asses because we'd like to see some good hockey. And
not just 1 or 2 players that are going to go anyways.
Or the rest of them being guys that had careers and now no longer have careers because they're not as good.
Yeah.
When even your second tier team, like Team Canada, can't go. There's an issue. But anyways, bringing it back to Hayley Wickenheiser, she's been around, like I said, as long as I can remember.
Since we were kids.
Exactly. But, best of luck to her, and I hope she can have a great career and life after hockey. I know it's hard for some people, especially for women, when they're done because they clearly don't make as much money as the men, and it's just the way it is at this point, and that's not a topic I want to get into right now. But best of luck to her, and I really hope we can see her in some role with Hockey Canada going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot is it Tessa Bonham? She's like a reporter now too, and so hopefully there's some. Hopefully
Cassie Campbell.
Yeah, Cassie Campbell.
In whatever the second half of her last name is.
When she got married.
I can't remember.
But hopefully whatever happens, we still get to see her at some point because it was part of our childhood, right?
Exactly. And she's always been a great proponent of women's hockey
and just really for a Canadian in general, just the pure class.
Exactly. It's pure class, eh? You hoser.
Take off, eh?
But anyways, I think we've reached the end of our time today. But we hope everyone enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you next week. We'll have lots of new news and All-Star game coming up next weekend. I think it is. So,
I believe it is. Yeah. So we'll touch on that as well.
Touch on whether or not it's actually still relevant.
See you later.
Yeah, have a good one.